we've got there.
Yes, I teach middle school, and I teach middle school to the richest of the rich and the poorest of the poor. How do I bring this to the richest of the rich, to the poorest of the poor, to the Jews, to the Christians, to the atheists? I got to bring it to all of them.
Absolutely.
How do I bring it to all of them?
Beautiful question. No, because every child, no matter what color, is precious and priceless. The problem now is that we're in a situation where you all know that the children, the precious children, the top 1% are number one in the world. In which Finland as a nation is number one in the world. It's only when you introduce poverty and race we drop to 21. You see, so rich children get taught and poor children get tested. You see, oh no, that's the truth. That's what we're talking about. You see, look at Chicago, 684 schools, right? 202 nurses for 684 schools. Only one of 4 schools have arts. So what is it like to be a precious young black brother or brown sister living in a hood? Guns, drugs, bullets. Go to school, you got metal detectors. Then you get there and you don't have music. You don't have arts. You don't have your imagination cultivated. You don't have your intelligence affirmed. You just test it, because the privatizing of our public schools is all about test. The teachers can't even engage in forms of teaching. And yet the well-to-do children, 14 in a class, told every day, whether it's true or not, you're brilliant. You say, sooner or later, I got to do something brilliant. Everybody else telling me I'm brilliant.
What's up, YouTube family? Welcome back to my space. This is Ivan Srayola. Guys, thank you so much for tuning to watch today's video. Guys, on today's video, we want to talk about the new Jim Crow. And to speak to us today is Dr. Cornel West. Dr. Cornel West has been a strong supporter of the new Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. He has praised the book for its powerful analysis of mass incarceration and how it functions as a racial caste system in the United States. In fact, he wrote the foreword to the book, where he described it as a grand wake-up call in the midst of a long slumber of indifference to the poor and vulnerable. West agrees with Alexander and that the war on drugs and the U.S. criminal justice system disproportionately target black communities, effectively creating a new form of racial control similar to the old Jim Crow laws. He sees the book as a crucial test in understanding the structural racism embedded in American institutions. However, he also pushes for a broader critique that includes capitalism and class struggles, arguing that systemic economic injustice plays a major role alongside racism. So guys, I want you to watch this video of Dr. Cornel West just trying to explain how the new Jim Crow era works in the United States. Once the video is done, we will get back and do a critical analysis about the same. Let's watch this together, fam.
I want to highlight, my dear sister Michelle Alexander, buy this book first. The other text can be tertiary. I want you to buy this text. She was kind enough to ask me to write the introduction. She's one of the great public intellectuals, but she is a witness bearer and a truth teller. And she begins by talking about a crime against humanity. Now, I want to express my solidarity with my sisters dealing with 1 billion rising. Violence against women is a crime against humanity, a cowardly brothers engaging in that kind of wounding and scarring and bruising of women of whatever what color. But the same is true when you talk about the new Jim Crow. It is, in fact, Jim Crow Jr., the same with Martin Luther King Jr., Fannie Lou Hamer, Rabbi Abraham, Joshua Heschel, and so many others tried to break the back of Jim Crow Sr., but we still got Jim Crow Jr. around. Don't get seduced by the relative progress. Don't get seduced by the parade of successful Negroes at the top. That's a beautiful thing. They wouldn't be where they are if folk through blood, sweat, and tears had not sacrificed. But there's so many still stuck in the basement. And if you look at the world through the vantage point of the least of these, through the vantage point of those stuck in the basement, whatever society we're talking about, then the new Jim Crow ought to be viewed as what it is. It's a criminal system that in some way still too criminal. We talked about solitary confinement this moment as a form of torture. I don't want to hear from elites that torture is over just because you eliminated waterboarding. No, that's not true. It's not true at all. There's other forms of torture still at work. Guantanamo and in prisons in the United States. I'm told Harry Belafonte threw down the other night. He's a truth teller. He's got a lot of Paul Robeson in him. And a whole lot of other voices he never forgets. He remembers the scars, but he doesn't allow the scars to have the last word. The last word is always love. Oh yes, the last word has to be love. Because if it's all just about analysis, if it's all just about appearance, then it's still sounding brass and tinkling cymbal. It's got to have deep love in it. It's not just about justice. The great Reinhold Niebuhr used to remind us what any justice that is only justice soon degenerates into something less than justice. Justice must be rescued by something deeper than justice. That's the love. And justice is what love looks like in public, but justice is not identical with love. The love is that irreducible stuff that keeps spurting out no matter what circumstances. You could find it in the concentration camps of our Jewish brothers and sisters against thugs called Nazis. The love was still spurting out. You couldn't completely suffocate it, even given the indescribable evil. That's true on the plantations too. It's true with our immigrant brothers and sisters wrestling with low-wage jobs. It's true with our sisters dealing with male violence. It's true with our gay lesbian brothers and sisters dealing with oftentimes insecure straight brothers and sisters. It's true with our precious elderly who oftentimes are cast in the net of invisibility as they're no longer as productive economically as they once were, but all of their wisdom and sagacity oftentimes push to the margins given our obsession with youthfulness, oftentimes too often identical with childishness and not childlikeness, sense of awe and sense of wonder. When you talk about the new industrial complex, you're talking about 2 generations nearly destroyed in black and brown poor communities, because it's not just mass incarceration. In many ways, it's class incarceration too. And everybody knows if it were happening at the same level among our middle class whites, it would be a major crisis in the culture. If it was happening among middle class black brothers and sisters, we'd have a different kind of black leadership. It wouldn't be invisible. Even our politicians would be leading the way. But that's not the case when it comes to our poor brothers and sisters of whatever color, but disproportionately chocolate. Yes, sir. And the same is true in terms of our drones. Oh, you can't talk about the criminalization of a younger generation. You can't talk about torture as a form of militaristic response to behavior, punitive disposition toward behavior, without talking about the militarism abroad. And if as a nation you think that you can bomb your way out of a crisis, dropping bombs on innocent people, every bomb dropped is a scar on the soul that's left in America. And the bombs that are dropped in Pakistan and Somalia and Yemen, they land in East Los Angeles. They land in South Central Los Angeles. And yes, they land in Pasadena too. It may not be as direct as you think, but sooner or later we're going to reap what we sow. Oh, sooner or later chickens will come home to roost. Sooner or later what's in the wash will come out in the rinse. Don't think that somehow you can just live a life of evasion and holding at arm's length the evil and the narrowly ugliness that sister was talking about, Sister Rena was talking about, you see. No, we got to view the world turned upside down when all of us bask in the light of a dignity, hungry to be treated with a decency, no matter what color, what culture, what civilization, what sexual orientation, whether you are religious, non-religious, agnostic or atheistic like my dear brother Bill Maher, who I love deeply, because he's on the love train. He just doesn't have a cognitive commitment to God talk. I think he's wrong about that, but that's all right. I got much to learn from the brother. We got our brother written classic on Richard Pryor. Where's our Richard Pryor brother? There he is. There he is. Can't wait to read your book. It's our artists who oftentimes are the ones we have to be attentive to. That last line of Percy Shelley's great revolutionary pamphlet of 1821, A Defense of Poetry. Poets are the unacknowledged legislators of the world. And he's not talking about versifiers. He's talking about all human beings who have the courage to muster the imagination and compassion to conceive of a different world, an alternative world, given the nightmarish world that we live in. You could do it through architecture, you could do it through painting, you could do it through music, but most importantly, you can make your life a work of art. You can make your life poetic. You can make your life prophetic. And you can make your life pietistic, understanding piety, not simply in a narrow, dogmatic, religious sense. Piety is the acknowledgement of your debt to those who came before and the way in which their love helped constitute you and the way in which their support and care for you constitutes a foundation for your move from your mama's womb to the tomb. So anybody who lacks piety is already fallen into this narrow American lie about being self-made. Oh, I did it all by myself, just me, my independent ego, my nomadic self. Oh, you birthed yourself too, I guess, too. Yeah, I worked it out 9 months. I won't tell you the secret. All of us dependent on antecedent mothers and fathers and grandparents and teachers and friends. And even when you're old as I am, when you have grandsons, I'm dependent on the younger generation. I need Lupe Fiasco to help preserve my sanity. I need Erykah Badu. I need voices from the dead like Janis Joplin and Carmen McRae and Sarah Vaughan. As I said on many occasions, I was a gangster before I met Jesus, and now I'm just a redeemed sinner with gangster proclivities. I need help. And in talking about these crimes against humanity, it could be against women, it could be with our prisoners, it could be with our brothers and sisters in Pakistan, Somalia, and Yemen. And it can especially be with our poor and working peoples. It can be with my trade unionists dealing with being demonized, especially teachers' unions, given the privatization of education. Standing with them. That's what is so necessary for the kind of love renaissance, justice renaissance, the shattering of the sleepwalking, the awakening, deep democratic awakening. Those Sly Stone call everyday people, mustering the courage to stand and straighten their backs up and be willing to organize and mobilize. And yes, some of us going to jail, and yes, some of us giving our lives. Now, martyrdom is not normative for the movement, but some must die. That is the depth of both the commitment, but also the threat to the status quo, no matter what color the elites are. And I know that's part of the controversy. People think I'm too hard on Brother Barack Obama, you know. Let the word go forth. I have a deep love for that brother. But love for me embraces not just respect and protect, but also correct. When you love folk, you respect them, you protect them, but you also correct them. If you come in, you lean toward Wall Street, correction is necessary. If you got a new prison industrial complex and poor folk get caught with drugs on the corner, but not one executive of a Wall Street bank goes to jail, All that Wall Street criminality, market manipulation, insider trading, fraudulent accounting, predatory lending, and not one goes to jail. You say to yourself, who do you think we are? Born at night, but not last night? Do you think we don't see the hypocrisy and the mendacity and the criminality that's going unaccountable? Not one torturer is going to jail. Not one wiretapper goes to jail. But when it comes to whistleblowers, oh my God. Bradley Manning, you got to go. You in solitary confinement with no clothes on. John Kiriakou, you got to stay in jail. The only CIA brother connected with corruption and torture that exposed the corruption and torture. He's the one in jail. Something wrong. That's a key sweat moment. Something just ain't right. We got to tell the truth. You got to have fearless speech, frank speech, plain speech. When the president does something that's progressive and prophetic, you support him and celebrate him. And when he does something that warrants criticism, you raise your voice and say, in the name of something bigger than me, in the name of something bigger than you, in the name of something bigger than America, it's called unarmed truth and unconditional love, which means every flag for me as a Christian is under the cross. People come running to me, oh, Brother West, where's your flag waving? I'm a cross bearer before I'm a flag waver. Oh, let's get that clear. Let's get that clear. And that's true in every nation where I am. I respect the flag when it tilts toward that rich legacy of Hebrew scripture. Do justly, love mercy, walk humbly with thy God. Then I'm with you, yes. But if you're refusing that high standard, then I will critically speak against you, not to bring you down, but to try to make you stronger in the eyes of especially those whose suffering is rendered invisible. That's why the new Jim Crow is one of the crucial realities that constitute a catalyst for the kind of love renaissance, the kind of justice renaissance that we need. Let me stop now because we're going to have a good 20 minutes or more. I might be late for my plane, given the spirit in this room. Absolutely. So let's stop now and jump right into the question. Yes, my dear brother.
Who's doing the mics for us?
Oh, that's right. We got the mics because we got the
we got the streaming.
That's right. We got, and I appreciate the radio and thing.
Here we come.
And what's the name of the radio? We should mention it for us. What's the name of your radio station, brother?
KPFK.
KPFK, yes. And give KPFK a hand. Give KPFK a hand.
Brother West, thank you again for coming again. I always appreciate you coming to our church. But let me ask you this. You mentioned the whole part about people not going to jail and bankers not going to jail.
Yes.
Can you just describe what must be the rationality for those folks that help launder money for the Mexican mafia, who the New York Times exposed, not going to jail? I mean, I still don't understand it, and I'd like maybe you to expound on that, please.
Well, it's a very good question, though. One, we've got to ask the Justice Department. We see that Brother Lenny Brower just resigned after that magnificent Frontline television show, The Untouchables. He was head of the criminal division that was supposed to engage in enforcement, at least investigation, of our Wall Street brothers, primarily brothers, not sisters. And they're still brothers because they're human beings. They just have a greed that's out of control sometimes. And we all do. It's not like we just pointing fingers. We all got greedy proclivities. But we need accountability. And when you're at the top being treated like a king or a queen and an oligarch and a plutocrat with no accountability whatsoever, that becomes the new norm. See, that becomes the new norm. So the obsession is the 11th commandment, thou shalt not get caught. And when you do get caught, just pay off the money. Pardon? They pay a little small settlement, a small slice of the money they made, and then never have to apologize. You see, and these are the same folk when they talked about poor people. Poor people need personal responsibility, and when you fail, you got to pull yourself up by your own bootstrap because that's how America functions. You either succeed or fail based on what capacities and choices and judgments you have. But when they fail, $700 billion of welfare, and $7.7 trillion of relatively free interest-free loans. Yet our students have to pay loans. Big loans with huge amounts of interest. But our bankers, the oligarchs and plutocrats of our day, like the kings and queens of 200 years ago, can get away with immunity. And that, to me, requires serious attention with love. Oh, no, it's got to be with love now. We're not talking about trashing nobody's mama, not talking about trashing anybody's humanity. We're talking about their deeds, their actions that generate consequences that are lethal for the weak and the vulnerable in our society. But we had enough. Yes, my sister.
Hi. I wanted to see what you thought about the immigration reform talks, especially in light of the increase in deportations under the Obama administration and the mass incarceration of immigrants in for-profit detention centers.
Yeah, I appreciate that question very, very much. So I'm just so glad we're having a discussion about it. Many of us were in Arizona years ago under the banner, Legalize Arizona. That was my banner, you know what I mean? It used to be Mexico, didn't it? That's what Ulysses S. Grant called the most wicked of any war of a great nation against a weak nation. That was the Mexican War of the 1840s. It was land grab, power grab, gangster activity all the way down. We got to remember that history. But I'm glad we're talking about it. For me, it's two things. One is that it's important that, for me, we don't engage in this dialogue with our precious Latino brothers and sisters simply because their numbers are increasing. I can't stand that kind of talk. It's a question of justice and fairness. I don't care how many numbers they have, whether the numbers are going up, whether the numbers are going down. We're talking about fairness. We're talking about justice. But see, in our minds, everybody got a little interest group. Oh, you got the blacks over here, browns over here, yellow over here, Jews here, Catholics here. No. That's politics in its most truncated Machiavellian form. But we're talking about what is moral, what is just, what is right. And for me, it has a spirituality to it. So I tell my Latino brothers and sisters, we're not concerned about you just because it's fashionable and faddish at the moment. We've been concerned all the way through. And my major question so far about the debate is, what do they mean by saying the whole thing's predicated by border security, especially with the use of drones? How do you achieve border security? What's the process? What's the end result? How do you measure it? How do you know you got enough border security for the comprehensive? That's the kind of questions we need to raise. But I'm so glad that we're talking about it, but it has to be cast not because the Latino vote supported so-and-so and the Republicans are in trouble because they lost the Latino vote. That's precisely the wrong kind of language in talking about any issue of public policy. Even though I'm not naive, I know there's that political dimension to it, but we have to have countervailing voices that go deeper than just the interest group articulation. That's the crucial thing.
Thank you for being here. Is it me? Okay.
Yeah, you go right ahead.
Thank you for being here today. I, for one, need this infusion of hope and spirit and intellect. One of the places that I work is in the city of San Bernardino, which, as you may know, is bankrupt, and it has one of the worst home foreclosure rates in the nation, of course, in the state.
Oh, God bless you.
So as you talk about new Jim Crow laws, and as I think about social justice, to me, one of the most eminent things for us to be working on is how do we remedy this foreclosure crisis, particularly in the city of San Bernardino and in the state of California. And I was wondering what your thoughts were about the proposition that some have brought forth with the eminent domain and taking over the mortgages and giving them back to the people at reduced rates. Is that ethical? Is that social justice? Is that the right way to attack this problem, which I feel is just, it's really hitting the urban poor. It's hitting the poor, the disenfranchised very, very much. So thank you.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate the question. And we got 20% of our citizens wrestling with being underwater when it comes to this foreclosure crisis and this housing crisis. I mean, one is that from the very beginning, I had wholeheartedly supported the bailing out of homeowners over the bailing out of banks. I mean, that should have been a priority, the same as it should have been a priority for jobs with a living wage. rather than the bailing out of banks, because our banks need to be decentralized, downsized, and do something that what they used to do, which is lend. I mean, it'd be nice if the big banks would start lending again rather than speculating and trading and on the casino-like market and so forth. So that, but secondly, I don't have the answer because I'm not an expert when it comes to the details. It's a matter of priorities. If we make it a priority to target the plight of our fellow citizens wrestling with foreclosure crisis and the housing crisis, in addition to massive public and including private investment, my hunch is, given all the creativity and imagination and intelligence in the United States far beyond myself, including yourself, that we'd have a whole host of ways in which we can ensure that folk are not going under and could once again be able to stand up tall and say, this is a space that I can have some control over. So that it's a matter, for me, it's a matter of the priorities. But in terms of all the details, though, I don't want to stand here and act as if I'm some expert on the inside. But these budgetary crises in San Bernardino and other cities have so much to do, of course, with the money hemorrhage at the top. I mean, banks sitting on how much now? $3.4 trillion, $2.2 trillion offshore. And they're waiting for the next crisis. You know what I mean?
How do you explain that so many Christian churches and Christian leaders interpret God's word that government has a role in regulating the nation's bedrooms, deciding who gets married, yet Matthew 25, about the least of these, right, including the imprisoned, is one of the most known passages right, in the Bible, yet it seems like there's no role for government in that area.
That's a wonderful question, no, brother. No, we human beings, we're something else. We are really something else. I mean, this is why the Beckett's and the Chekhovs and the Harold Pinters and the Lorraine Hansberrys mean so much to us. We need our artists to remind us of the tragic comic character in which we find ourselves. It's just so difficult for us to love our crooked neighbor with our crooked hearts. It's just, Auden is right. W.H. Auden is right. And so you had to continually point out the hypocrisy. You know, even our deep fundamentalist Christians, you know, they want to be fundamentalists about everything other than love thy neighbor as thyself. Want to be fundamental about that one. Focus on that one. Focus on that one. Because I am a fundamentalist Christian. I'm a fundamentalist Christian to the core when it comes to the love thing. You see, when it comes to the love thing. The word of God versus the words of God. And the word of God was in Jesus. Jesus was all about the love. And they tried to crush him. They tried to suffocate him. But the love kept coming through. It just couldn't completely be eliminated and erased. And I come from a people who people gave up on. Ain't no way these black folk gonna keep producing love folk, given the levels of hatred coming at them to hate their bodies, hate the folk who look like them, hate who they are. And here come this love train, stronger than ever. Even stronger on the chocolate side, oftentimes than the vanilla side. And the vanilla brothers and sisters understood what was going on over there and said, ooh, I want to get in on that. That's some deep human stuff. We like that funk. We tired of this deodorized stuff over here. Oh, yes. And so the hypocrisy that you're talking about needs to be pointed out over and over and over again. Every generation, new challenges. We've got to...
Yes, I teach middle school, and I teach middle school to the richest of the rich and the poorest of the poor. How do I bring this to the richest of the rich, to the poorest of the poor, to the Jews, to the Christians, to the atheists? I got to bring it to all of them.
Absolutely.
How do I bring it to all of them?
Beautiful question. No, because every child, no matter what color, is precious and priceless. The problem now is that we're in a situation where you all know that the children, the precious children, the top 1% are number one in the world. In which Finland as a nation is number one in the world. It's only when you introduce poverty and race we drop to 21. You see, so rich children get taught and poor children get tested. You see? Oh no, that's the truth. That's what we're talking about. You see? Look at Chicago, 684 schools, right? 202 nurses for 684 schools. Only one of 4 schools have arts. So what is it like to be a precious young black brother or brown sister living in a hood? Guns, drugs, bullets. Go to school, you got metal detectors. Then you get there and you don't have music. You don't have arts. You don't have your imagination cultivated. You don't have your intelligence affirmed. You just test it, because the privatizing of our public schools is all about test. The teachers can't even engage in forms of teaching.
Family, as always, Dr. Cornel West is one of those black figures in America who really try to fight for black rights. He tries to empower the black folks. And in this specific video, he speaks, just like you've heard, about the new Jim Crow era. At some point, he calls it the Jim Crow Jr. He says, this new Jim Crow, I call it Jim Crow Jr., the likes of Martin Luther King try to break him. You know, they try to break the Jim Crow Senior, but we still go Jim Crow Jr. with us today. And it's our turn as the black folk, you know, to fight against the new Jim Crow era, the Jim Crow Jr. He says, don't get seduced by the relative progress. We can see relative progress with the black people in America. He says, let us not get seduced by the relative progress by black folks. Let us don't get seduced by the parade of successful Negroes at the top. The new Jim Crow is a criminal system. And guys, I found this video to be very instrumental, very insightful. And I thought that I should actually share it with you. And I went further to do more research in regards to what Dr. Cornel West was trying, you know, to deliver in his speech about the new Jim Crow era. Dr. Cornel West forward to the new Jim Crow is a powerful endorsement of Michelle Alexander's argument that mass incarceration functions as a new racial caste system in the United States. Here's a deeper breakdown of his perspectives. This is what I found out in my research. Number one is the urgency of Alexander's argument. West describes the new Jim Crow as a grand wake-up call. Family, hear this. He describes the new Jim Crow as a grand wake-up call, highlighting how American society has largely ignored or accepted the racial injustices of criminal justice system. He praises Alexander for providing a clear, well-researched, and unfilching account of how mass incarceration has become a tool for racial control, much like slavery and segregation were in the previous eras. Family, Dr. Cornel West says in this video that now people have already gotten used, you know, to racial injustices, to the criminal justice system that is working against the black folk, and that should not be the case. He says that the book by Alexander on the new Jim Crow just is a wake-up call to the black folk, you know, to stop being used, to being treated badly, to stop being used, you know, to the racial injustices that we are facing. This is a wake-up call to strengthen us, to empower us as the black folk. And this is one book that I'll actually recommend for black people to go and read, The New Jim Crow. You know, it's an eye-opener. It's a book that would be able, you know, to empower the black folk. This is a must-read book. The number two in my research is the role of the war on drugs. West strongly agrees with Alexander's argument that the war on drugs was never truly about public safety, but rather a strategic effort to criminalize and marginalize black communities. He supports her claim that policies like harsh sentencing laws, stop and frisk policing, and felony disfranchisement have created a permanent underclass of black Americans, stripping them of rights, economic opportunities, and political power. The war on drugs isn't what many people think. The war on drugs was actually meant, you know, to disfranchise the black people to a permanent underclass, you know, stripping them of their rights. The main target were black folk. The target was to ensure that the black folk had to pass through this wrath, you know. And the role on the war on drugs is nothing about the drugs, but now just to fight the black man. Number three is connecting to broader struggles. While West fully endorses Alexander's thesis, he also expands the conversation to include class struggle and economic injustice. He argues that racism and capitalism work hand in hand to oppress black people and poor communities. He believes that beyond fighting mass incarceration, there must be a larger movement to challenge neoliberal capitalism, which prioritizes profit over people and disproportionately harms the poor. Then number 4, we have the critics of black leadership and liberal politics. West is critical of black elites and liberal politicians who have failed to confront mass incarceration. He points out that many black leaders, including some in the Democratic Party, have been complicit in policies that led to mass incarceration. He calls for a deeper, more radical commitment to justice rather than just reformist approaches that maintain the status quo. Then number 5 is the hope for a social movement. Despite the grim reality of the new Jim Crow, West sees hope in the power of grassroots movements, community activism, and intellectual engagement. He believes that books like The New Jim Crow play a crucial role in awakening black consciousness and inspiring resistance against racial and economic oppression. Family, as a black, YouTuber, I just want to empower black folks and tell black folks that we shall endeavor to resist against racial and economic oppression. The book, The New Jim Crow, is a book that will empower the black folk, a book that we must read. We must say no, to oppression. We must say no to any laws that are meant to oppress the black folk. Guys, let me know on the comment section down below what you think about the teaching, that you've learned from this video by Dr. Cornel West. Like this video so that it can be recommended to other YouTube users, and I'll be so grateful. Guys, last but not least, I want to request you from the bottom of my heart that you do consider subscribing to the channel. We are currently on the road to 50,000 subscribers, and guys, we cannot do it without your support. Come through and subscribe to the channel. See you all in my next episode. Goodbye for now.